much. Oh, hold on. Yes. Thank you so much, parents, for joining us tonight. I know it's difficult, like we said, at 7 p.m. It's hard, but thank you. We appreciate it. Tonight, I'm so happy to introduce Miss Michelle. We know Miss Michelle for so many years. It's a Montessori expert. For how long you were a teacher at CMCS, Miss Michelle?
At
20 years?
CMCS, well, total teaching 25, but CMCS
25.
16. Yeah.
25 years of experience in a Montessori environment. She has actually, as an expert, she has three children, as a mother, as a teacher, as a co-worker. Knows Montessori very well. And we're very happy to have you tonight, Miss Michelle. Thank you
Oh, thank you,
for
Patricia.
joining us.
Yeah, I'm glad to still be a part of GMS, having my youngest go through such a great community. And hello everybody. My name's Michelle, and welcome to today's presentation. The Head, Heart, and Hands of Parenting. And I'm going to be kind of walking you through 10 pillars to transform your parenting. And if you're like most parents, none of us escape this. We have moments where we just feel completely overwhelmed, right? Or just, in this blender of controlled chaos. And so I hope to be, giving you some perspectives and allowing you a little bit more peace of mind when it comes to the relationships that matter most to you. So whether you're here today on this call or watching the replay, um, I hope to kind of open up some perspectives for you. So this workshop is for you if you have that deep desire to parent peacefully, meaning your kids are great, you enjoy raising them, you want to experience a close connection and more cooperation and less conflict.
ఇప్పుడేం ప్లే చేయట్లేదు మా ఇది మీ స్కూల్ వాళ్ళు ఇది చెప్తున్నారు సో ఎలా ఉండాలి హ్యాపీగా సేఫ్
And you want to create that long-lasting, close relationship with them. And, there's a lot of information out there on social media or just conflicting information that can be kind of overwhelming. Like, what am I supposed to do? And there's probably areas in your parenting that you feel really confident about. I think sometimes we forget our strengths. We don't necessarily highlight them. But, there are, I'm sure, areas that you can grow into. And so maybe you were raised a certain way and you're wanting to kind of do things little differently, or you made a promise to yourself that would parent differently, but there isn't really kind of a model that can help you do that. So, as the leaders of our home, we have a huge responsibility, right? And so I want you to kind of imagine, I know some of the ages here that parents shared were like 2, 3, 4, maybe up to 6. So fast forward, imagine your child is like 25, 26, right? Their brain is fully developed. They're coming home for the holidays. What future skills do you envision them having? There's a list here. Maybe they're very kind and honest and creative and passionate, um, emotionally stable and respectful and disciplined. Um, and so, a lot of times when we're looking at these skills that we want our kids to have in the future, we really have to think about, are we modeling them ourselves, right? They're not just going to know it, they have to actually feel it and see it. And so the more we live into what we want our children to learn, the more we will honor it. And Maria Montessori based her educational methodology on the human experience, on the human development. And she believed in the mirror neurons that are pruned throughout brain development of a child, really confirmed the idea that children learn best through their environment by observing, by absorbing, and repeating. And she discovered this through observation. And that's one of the things when I work with parents is to really help them be that observer, right? Do less, watch more. And so she discovered this, and later on, a neuroscientist in the late 90s also confirmed. And so not only did Maria Montessori believed in the prepared environment, but she also believed in the prepared adult. And so when the adult is able to access presence in themselves, they're really prepared for anything. And so parents are that first family or community unit, and we really do have an impact on our children's development. And so are we modeling those skills that we hope our children will eventually learn and hold and value when they are fully developed adult? So maybe you're thinking, there's no way that I can have a less chaotic house hold if I don't, threaten to take my child's iPad away or TV away, or, if they break a rule. And all of that's okay. I'm not here to convince you what's the right parenting for your family. You truly get to decide what's best. But I do, however, want to kind of share some knowledge and some insights on some possibilities, and show you that when we get some clear perspectives, we can really, kind of minimize those struggles in the home. Perfection is never the goal. I'm sorry to tell you, but there is no perfect way to do this. Kids are dynamic, they're intense. Raising them is the same. So perfection is not the goal, but connection is. Teaching our children that, when they make mistakes, they can fix them. They're going to be valued regardless of what's happening, and their voice really has a place in the home. And so, some of the things I'll share, some of you might take it and run with it, and others you might need some support. So, I promise at the end, I'll let you know how we can kind of have a conversation and talk about how I can support your family. So last year, probably around this time, the US Surgeon General issued an advisory on parental stress, and it reported super high levels. 48% of parents say that on most days their stress is completely overwhelming. And so the truth is, none of us really have a model for how, to parent in this modern time. And we're dealing with stressors that previous generations did not have. And so I'm going to talk about my personal journey, and then we'll go into the workshop. So that's my crew there. I'm married to a wonderful man and have three boys, 19, 16, and 11. And they have truly inspired me to grow and to heal and to improve in so many areas of my life. I truly believe that our children unintentionally hold up a mirror of what we need to work on, for ourselves. And trust me, like they don't always have the smiling face in this photo that you see here. I mean, they have their disagreements, sibling, moments, and where they're at each other's throat. And I definitely get annoyed when they don't follow through with something they say they're going to do. But all of those are part of our day and part of our moments, along with the fun connection, as well. Now, early in my parenting, I didn't always see that this was possible. My husband was studying for his MBA, so it was kind of solo parenting. And I just was super overwhelmed and stressed, and I just wanted everything around me to change so that I could do better. And so what I realized is that I had to be the one to really change and do better. And so if you're kind of feeling that things are kind of working against you, or things just seem really too hard, I just want to share that, you really get to have a huge impact when you decide to do something different, and things really start to change towards an even bigger, long-lasting impact. So, as Miss Patricia said, I've been a long time Montessori teacher for 25 years, and it was honestly a big wake-up call when I decided to get my parent coaching certification. I was thinking this was a business decision, and I had a lot of experience working with kids from 2 to 12, but I really had no idea what was missing for me that really made a difference. And so that's why I'm here to share some of those things. I now have the pleasure to be supporting families globally to just really find more calm and more peace and more confidence with their interactions with children. So I still feel like I'm working with children, but through their parents. So let's dive in. The head, heart, and hands of parenting is really just embodying this core belief that everyone in the household is inherently equal. Even if there's a distinction between maturity and brain development or neurodiversity or needs, each person is worthy of respect, empowerment, and dignity. And really, in order to fulfill that connection and clarity and confidence, we must parent from the heart and the body and actually quiet our heads, right? Quiet our minds, quiet our spinning thoughts, quiet our fears. And I totally get it. I come from a family of warriors. I come from catastrophizing situations type of family. My mom is that way. My grandmother was that way. All my aunts are that way. It's like everything's worst case scenario. So I really had to do some work in just connecting what is true. And I do that. I help parents with that through a framework called the peace process. Because many of us are parenting from fear, from thoughts that we grab onto in our heads. And I get it. Like the world is scary right now, right? But when we can really connect to our heart, we're able to have more clarity and confidence to guide our children with love. So the head of transformational parenting is that mental dedication and skill. So when we replace, again, those fabricated spinning thoughts with the willingness to access evidence, science, evidence-based research, this really supports and affirms our parenting. And so I'll make this a little bigger for my eyes. So as we go through these 10 pillars, I'd love if you could take notes, whether you're here or watching the replay, on areas that you feel confident, areas that you're like, you know what? I feel like I really do this. And also make notes on areas that maybe it doesn't come as easily or you have some room to grow in. We all have those areas, and we really just owe it to our children to continue growing ourselves. So, all right, so we'll go into the head. So, again, we're replacing those spinning thoughts in our head with these. So, number one is inform and aware. So, deeply committing to embracing brain development, attachment patterns, nervous system science, and emotional intelligence for the entire family, and conscious communication. Number two is intentions. Well, intentions and reflection. So I like to describe intentions like arrows that lead you to your goals, right? And so we live in this fast-paced world, and so it's like slow down, right? Reflect on daily what's working, what's not working. What does your child need, and what do you need as a leader in your home to thrive? Number three is present, committed, and devoted to imperfect authenticity. So the devotion really to continue growing from a space of curiosity. We're not here to know how to deal with every new parenting situation personally and perfectly, sorry. I just sent my oldest to college. I've never done that before. And yeah, it was a little messy the first couple weeks. He's like, Mom, can you stop stalking me? Because I've never gone through that before, right? So we're committing, to create this awareness and these growth opportunities where we can be accountable when we mess up. When he brought that up to my attention, I'm like, you know what? You're right. I need to support you in this transition and not worry that you're, you know, hurt or something. Um, so yeah, just really kind of checking in with yourself and understanding that things are not going to be, perfect. And when we mess up, we own it and we apologize and we learn from it. So the heart of transformational parenting is the emotional commitment and availability. And so this is the emotional intelligence strategies and values. So number four is all feelings are valid. So all feelings are welcomed, but not all behaviors are. So we understand that there's no good or bad feelings for ourselves or for our children, but that doesn't mean that we rescue our children from when they're going through those harder ones, right? We're able to move through the turbulence without changing our course. That's what a sturdy leader does. And so we do this by practicing acceptance, non-judgment, so that we can process feelings and allow them to pass. This is something that, we must support our children to do as well. Many parents that I work with can feel extremely guilty or overwhelmed when their child is expressing a storm, what I like to call like strong emotions, or maybe they're pushing back on a boundary. And so this can cause a little disorganization if the parent changes courses, right? Or if they're internalizing their child's emotions as a reflection on them. And so your child gets to, feel what they experience, but it doesn't mean you have to change the boundary. And so our children really get to unpack their emotional backpack on us, with us, and we're welcoming of this. Number five is attuned and empathetic. So every behavior is our child's best attempt to get their needs met, right? Based on what skills they've developed so far. And so when we're able to offer gentleness and consideration when they make a mistake, we're able to kind of be more empathetic and attuned. And this is building their emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is the foundation for intellectual intelligence. The next one is loving kindness and forgiveness. So we're assuming good intent for our children, right? And this can be hard for parents, who maybe grab onto that thought or that idea that their child is being manipulative or they're, acting a certain way to get something, or we see this discomfort or this conflict as an opportunity to learn and grow, right? That this is the natural process of growth and development. I always say that to my kids, especially my oldest. I'm like, we're growing partners. I raise you, but you also raise me. So we're looking at it kind of with that mindset shift. And then the hands, once we're connecting the head and the heart, then we're able to get into kind of the pragmatic techniques and tools and for our parenting. So number seven is communication to connect and understand. So we're holding space for our children as they find their voice, as they learn to be heard, and we're practicing nonviolent communication. So we're, remembering that violence is not only physical harm, but it's emotional and spiritual harm. And, I work with a lot of families with a framework called the NVC, and it's truly life-changing, and it definitely has been. Number 8 is nonviolence and safety. So safety as a commitment, again, to nonviolence in thought, word, and deed. And then number 9, someone's having fun drawing, I think. Number 9 is boundaries from values. This is a big one for parents. Kids need rules. They need a leader that is dedicated to setting limits and boundaries and rules from the clarity of our core values. So your core values are like your North Star, and that's going to help you have that clarity to create the boundary and hold it. Now, it doesn't mean that the values aren't going to change. Like a value you might hold high for a 4-year-old is going to look very different than when you have a 14-year-old. So the values are meant to evolve along with the boundaries. So time to reflect here. Let me see if I would love if you could kind of just think about what is a pillar that comes easily to you and what is one that maybe you have room to grow. And we can maybe share in the chat, or if you want to unmute, we can definitely do that as well. This is judge-free zone. I can definitely go first. I think a pillar that comes easily to me is the informed and aware. I think based on my trainings and my experience of knowing child development, brain development, now attachment science, those kind of things are just great. Um, it's a great way to kind of remind myself when I do spin into those thoughts of really what's true and what's going on. An area that I'm growing in and continue to growing is the communication to connect and understand. I didn't always have that modeled for me. A lot of times things weren't really talked about, they were brushed under the rug. And I definitely wanted to kind of have more openness and communication with my family. And so that is something we continue to work on, to really kind of understand and problem solve with our effective communication. So who wants to share? Don't be shy. We're all here to learn.
Michelle, I'll tap in for a second. It's Miss Stephanie. For those who can't see me, I apologize. I'll be available in a second. But I think, the 3 pillars that you are speaking of are so important in this day and age of parenting, because I feel like information is coming from so many different directions right now, that it's like, do we do, gentle parenting, or do we have this type of parenting where parents are feeling overwhelmed of even what they're good at, and they're second guessing themselves because there's so much information coming from so many different directions. So I think it's okay, even if you don't know, oh, maybe this is something that I'm strong in, or this is something that I need to work in, because I feel like in even that aspect, many parents are struggling because so much information with today's day of internet and groups and mom groups and that type of programs, they don't know how to process all this information.
Yeah, great point. My cousin, she lives in Denver and she has 2 little ones, a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. And my aunt, my godmother, actually flew to Denver to watch her kids while she was, I think she had to work or something. Well, anyway, she's like, oh, like trying to tell her mom, well, we don't do this anymore. They say, don't say no to them because then it's bad. And my aunt is like, well, what are you talking about? Like, I said no to you. Like, if it's no, it's no. And so even generationally, there is conflict, right? Like, I have a couple client who reach out to me because they have a lot of pressure from the grandparents of how to parent and what's right and what's wrong and what they did and what worked and what, you know. And so to your point, Miss Stephanie, it can feel very overwhelming. Like how do I find what works, what feels good for me and my partner to, kind of feel confident to move forward. And so really to do that, you have to kind of really look at your wins, look at, your areas that you do thrive, but also the areas, well, you know what, I do come a little short in here and I need to like acknowledge that and work on that and set some intentions to grow.
I think, Miss Michelle, you said something super important at the beginning. You said that every single one is important in a family. And in previous generations, what happened that the children did not have that both that we're trying to give them now on this new generation. And in Montessori especially, I can see that we the children actually they are included in every single activity or aspect that happens in the classroom. They can just express their feelings, they can just make their opinion, their own opinion. So I think that's extremely important now at home, just to respect them, to just help them feel that they are part of the decisions. And even though they're young, they're not mature enough, but it's extremely important, like the communication. So for me, it's just a crucial part. Like, that can help the family. So if they know, for example, okay, tomorrow we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Oh, unfortunately, I know you're expecting this from us, but we cannot do it right now because, I mean, if we just take our time to explain and to communicate more with them, I think that will, we will see like a positive,
Shift.
as
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
definitely. Definitely. I agree. I think communication is, and it's not just communication. Like actually, when you look at communication as a whole, your nonverbal and your tone counts for a lot more than the actual words you say. So well, communication is important. Like it's important, especially when you have a young child that's evolving and can really just absorb and read your energy, read your mood or your tone, and they're just able to do that because they don't have all the stresses that we have in their head. They're just sponges. And so, the quality of communication, I think, is really important. I agree with you. Would anyone else like to share before we move on? I know we might be doing like bedtime and all of the things.
Hi. Actually, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So to be honest, I would say I feel like kind of fail in every part of it because it's always like something that it's never perfect, as you said, right? It's always something. So in terms of the head, I agree with Stephanie that it's too much information
Yeah.
and sometimes it gives you a fear. So, and I like the phrase that you said that sometimes we parent from the fear. And I feel like that is the biggest issue with me. So I have so many fears
Yeah.
to mess it up for his future, for like do some like, I don't know, child's trauma, it's all, everything comes from parents, right? So, and it's very difficult like to really find the right path, I would say. So sometimes it's too much.
Yeah.
So the head is kind of failing in this situation, right? Or at least trying not to show him that fear, but a lot of actions they coming from that fear,
Right.
And second one, the emotional commitment, the heart, you said. So of course, that is probably the strongest and the biggest part of me, because like it's a big love. It's a lot of like forgiveness and everything. So it's like almost like kind of blind in
Mhm.
terms of like seeing things, because he's my son and I think he's the best, in everything. But um there is like kind of emotional drain.
Yeah.
So because like you want to give too much, and eventually you kind of, sometimes there is no that equality, as you said, like in the family. So
Mhm.
it feels like he rules the family, not like we are equal partners
Right.
sometimes.
And are you
And
referring, I don't mean to cut you off, are you referring to you don't feel like your needs are equally being met? It's more for your child's needs? Or is it between
it's not
partners?
even about needs, and more like emotional, kind of like um you given too many emotions, so you kind of have nothing. You don't really want to sit and like smile and play and enjoy the time, because you don't really have that like energy, because you literally like playing like every day so many times, like trying to support, and it's like you kind of overdoing it. Like sometimes you really don't want to do it. You're just doing it because you really love this kid, and like, but it's not something like you feel like you want to do, but you're still
Right.
doing it.
Right. I
So
get what you're
it's
saying.
kind of, you know,
Yeah. No, I mean what I hear you say to the root of that is you're super invested in your it's is it Leo, your son?
yes, yes, Leonid,
Yeah,
yeah.
if you're super invested and want to, make sure, like you said, you don't mess it up, you don't, have any long-lasting issues. And so you're kind of pouring from an empty cup. You're feeling,
Exactly. Yeah.
is that kind of resonate with you? You're feeling like you're giving, 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 but it's not necessarily feeling meaningful.
Uh, I think it is very meaningful and important, and I see like result in my son, but like kind of, I just want to find something that like maybe he can. mm, I mean, it's part of Montessori too, like for him to be more independent, and
Yeah.
like to be able to have fun and like kind of by himself sometimes,
Yeah.
not just get all that energy from like his parents.
And it's
And
perfectly fine for you to say to him, here, and it's something actually I tell parents to practice. You can't just expect them to do it on their own, but maybe have some quiet activities or things that he can do. Mommy's gonna have her quiet time, you're gonna have your quiet time. And you kind of incorporate that and you practice so that you get to pour into yourself, right? Because you can't just keep giving, giving, giving and not giving back to yourself. It's kind of like the oxygen mask in the airplane. You have to put yours on first. Does that make sense?
yeah, so it does make sense, and I understand what you mean. There, maybe just with my kid, or I don't really know how to do it, because like he doesn't really play by himself much. So it's always like, even if I tell him like I need some time, like he's always like he comes to me and like all the time, and it's like, Mom, let's do that. Let's do that. Like he doesn't hear that like I need some time, or like his father needs some time. He always wants to like us to be part of everything he's doing. So
Sure. Yeah. You might have to start off like where you're in proximity, you're not out of the room, obviously, and maybe think of maybe some quiet activities that he can do close by. And then you start to build from that, right? And
mhm.
just like in the classroom when they're taking material off the shelf, and and doing that after they've received the lesson, right? They've had the lesson, they've had the support from the teacher, and then they're able to access that on their own. So you might have to kind of do that like a guide and do it with him first, and then kind of let him have access to that.
Mhm.
But I totally appreciate you sharing and what you said about the parenting from fear. That is, you're not alone. Um, That
And
is,
it's also, I think it's a lot about like my family that came from my family, how like my parents raised me, more my mom. But and I know that I have the same, and I understand it. I understand my mom so much now, right? When I have a kid.
don't we all?
Yeah, it's like I have the same, I won't say the same things what my mom used to tell me, but I'm literally just like holding myself because I know how it can affect my son,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So like I don't want to build inside of him like that, like fears of
Repeat
doing
that.
things, that curiosity and like the will to like explore.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, I totally get that. It's definitely takes practice. Um, of being, regulating your nervous system when you feel that fear, that anxiety kind of taking the wheel, right? The driving wheel taking
Mhm.
over, of just reminding yourself, is this a thought or is this true? Because we have
Mhm.
over 500,000 thoughts a day, and if we grab onto all of them that are just not true, like how
Yeah.
is that serving us? How is that serving the relationships that matter most to us? So, um, that is that thought work is really important to kind of step in front of the behavior or step in front of your reaction so that you
Mhm.
you can really be present.
So yeah, it's difficult to be present. It's difficult to not show your fear, and it's difficult to like really to be fully emotionally like available all the time. So like yeah, it's just difficult. I feel like everything like has like is nothing is perfect. I can't imagine like anyone who has all this stuff perfect, you know?
It
And
totally.
you're not alone. That's the thing. You're not alone. Every
Yeah, I hope so.
parents are feeling the same thing. So you're not alone.
100%. 100%. And no, there isn't anyone that has all of this down pack. I mean, as humans, we have our days that we're under-resourced, where we've had a stressful day or we're, 2 days ago I had a migraine. I'm not going to be the best communicator when I have a migraine. Like we're going to have our moments in our days that we're not always at our highest, and that's okay. I always like to describe, and you said, I'm afraid to mess up my child in the future. Like I always like to describe like a quilt, or not a quilt, like a knitting blanket, right? You're gonna have, let's say green represents connection and love and, I don't know, I can't think of another word, but the goodness, right? You might, and then the red is like the things that didn't go well, right? Like we screamed, we reacted, we didn't communicate, When you look at that, you're gonna have like green, you're gonna have some red, you're gonna have some more green, but when you look at that whole blanket, like what color is it? Is it more green? Hopefully. And so it's okay if we have those
Rainbow.
little moments here and there, but our goal is to have the experience be more positive, right? As
Yeah,
positive as we can.
of course. Um, you also at the beginning you were talking about the skills that like we kind of want our kids to have. And I think that one of the very important skill that like we don't really think often, it's like I think it is a skill to be able to be happy.
Mm,
Because a lot of kids like we want like to put him in like the best schools, to take him to different classes, to give them as much as information as possible. And it's very important, I think, to teach them or like to be able to like kind of, I don't know, like just be happy. I feel like it is a skill. It is some type of like, I don't know.
I think
So
what you mean, like having like a mindset where you see the good and you see, the positive in things versus negative, right? Like a lot of times when we see the news, it's negative, it's bad, and our mind kind of goes and finds all the negative things that support that, right? And so
Mhm.
happiness is to see the good, to see the beauty, to enjoy and connect and share. You know, I think I might have missed the last one for some reason. That joy, play, and laughter. That is, you know, the nutrients for connection. And
Mhm.
you know, how do we prioritize that in our day to day when the stresses are kind of and the to-do lists are kind of feeling overwhelmed? Um, so I want to move on to like some tools that maybe might be helpful in your day to day. So, and thank you so much, Olga, for
Thank
sharing.
you.
I really appreciate that. And so I want to kind of I want you guys to imagine that you're my children. Okay, I'm your parent, and I'm gonna kind of the scenario is gonna be like bedtime. Okay, and I want you to really just think about the way I'm communicating to you. Like, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you deciding? And put yourself in your child's age, like whatever age they are, like put yourself to that. And so these are some common tools. They are tools that probably we've all used at some point, or so there's no judgment here, right? I know I probably have used them as well. So again, just what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you deciding? So number one, how come you're never ready for bedtime? You should know better than to drink water at dinner. No talking, just go to bed. You're fine. Just go to bed. How many times do I have to tell you? Do you need a timeout? If you go to bed now, I'll give you another sticker. Okay, honey, one more snack, and then you have to go to bed. So some of these tools are, you know, blaming, shaming, punishment, dismissing of feelings, threatening, bribing, permissiveness. So what are you feeling receiving that type of communication? You can either unmute or tech or put in the chat. Did anything come up? No? We're quiet.
No, nothing's in the chat. But I think, but people, when you read it like that, you're like, ooh, shoot, maybe I shouldn't have said it that way, type of thing. You're like, I guess, I think it's so easy to blurt these things out sometimes, and not think of how it's coming out and how the child may be perceiving it as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Now, we'll go through some other types of tools. These are more kinder and firmer tools. Same scenario. So it's time for our steps. What needs to happen now? This one would be like proactive, like 10 minutes before. Is there anything you need before you get into bed? We ran out of time, sweetie, but here's a hug before you get your PJs on. I see you're feeling a little sad, and it's time for bed. Do you want to begin with brushing your teeth or bath time? What's next on your rhythm chart? Your show has ended, and it's time to begin our steps for bed. So, how did those feel?
Much better. The tone is different.
The
So,
tone, yeah, the tone. You know, the number one tool, the ask and check perception, I think is one of it's great for school age and middle school kids, but if you can start early, it's really just igniting the executive functioning skills because, you know, when children verbalize what their plan is or they tell you, you know, this is what I'm going to do, they're more apt to kind of do that versus if you tell them what to do. So it's a great way for them to kind of think and use the planning, executive functioning skills to do whatever it is, you know. And then, of course, being proactive is just going to set everybody up for success, right? And so when we're able to do that ahead of time and really kind of manage the time a little bit, that's helpful. Loving and logical consequences. The world is full of consequences. There are natural consequences which happen without you having to step in, you know, like if a child doesn't put his bike away and leaves it outside and it gets stolen, that's a natural consequence. And there's logical consequences where the adult has to kind of step in and it's related to whatever it is. So like, you know, going back to the bike thing, if you know, you get your helmet on, then you have access to the bike. Like that's the logical consequence. Um, you know, whereas arbitrary consequences sometimes are not related with the behavior. So, you know, but the logical and the natural are really important to have in your parenting. Validation of feelings. You know, our kids can't always name what they're feeling. Their behaviors kind of just are expressing what's coming up for them, but they can't always name it. And sometimes they need you to do that for them. Um, and then acceptable choices. Children don't get a lot of choice, like, right, they're being driven around and dropped off and picked up. And so giving them some autonomy and some choice that's acceptable. Not too many choices, but just, you know, one or two. Um, and then visual charts. Kids are really visual, and having a chart, whether that's your bedtime routine or your morning routine or whatever it is, can be like the teacher or the guide that you can kind of refer to and say, hey, well, where are you on your chart? Like on your rhythm chart for tonight. It's a great reminder. And then following through, right? Um, you know, being consistent. And I mentioned it a little earlier when we were talking about the feelings. You know, sometimes when we see our children having those harder moments, then it kind of ignites something in us to change gears. But being that sturdy leader and following through is going to teach our children discipline and teach them to manage their emotions and regulate their emotions, and that the emotions will pass, right? And it's not a reflection if they're having a hard time on you. And sometimes we take that personally as parents, but following through and being consistent is super important for the development of children.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on that too, Michelle. I think so many times, like you talked about the fear, and the parents are, and like Olga spoke about, like you don't want to screw up, this parenting journey. So parents are second guessing. But again, with that kind of falling through and allowing these children to have these type of emotions, it's part of their brain development. They need to work through these emotions. If we're always rescuing them and we're always not allowing these emotions to happen, their brain is not going to continue to grow. So again, you have to remember this is part of their growing period too, as well as you being consistent with your decision. If we're always giving in, or we're always not following through or going back on what we're doing, what type of brain development are we, teaching in these lessons that the children, okay, well, if I just cry longer, then I'm going to get my way. If I just, throw, a little bit more fit, or I refuse to do this, oh, I can go a step further. So we have to really realize that this is part of their development. We need to allow them to struggle. We need to let them, it's okay to let them cry. It's okay to let them feel emotion, because that's part of their growth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when you said struggle, let your kids struggle, I think that can be very challenging for parents, but there's so much growth in that. Like not only building their confidence, but also like them realizing, you know, emotions are like a wave. They pass. And so you know, and even like if it is a mistake or something they're frustrated with, like how do you support them to move through that and build that frustration tolerance so that I think that's one of the things that I think this new generation that's, I don't even know what generation it's called because I lost track, are struggling in the workforce, right? They're struggling with being frustrated and they're getting, losing, not getting hired or just losing their jobs because they can't deal with frustration. So that's a problem. Like we have to have our kids be frustrated and like help them, support them through that, but not take that opportunity away or that experience away, I should say. It's part of the human experience. So, doing things different than what we've done, it can seem scary, it can seem overwhelming. Um, but it takes courage and patience and willingness to really, just kind of figure out what it is, what's important to you, what do you value. And real change, getting better at something over and over requires coaching because it brings new ideas, it brings accountability, it to ensure that you're following through until your intentions become a new habit. And so, if you would like a deeper dive in this work, or anything we spoke about today, like I definitely would offer a conversation. I'd love to learn about your family and see how I could support you in any way. Um, so I just want to thank you all for your time. And if you need anything, I'm here. Probably the easiest way to reach me is either texting me or on my website. You can book a call there, and we'll get to have a conversation together. So I'll stop sharing, but if anyone would like to share a takeaway or anything, any questions, I'm here. If not, I hope everybody has a great night.
I think one of the biggest takeaways, like I always, is like that giving the choices that I think if parents always kind of get stuck in a quick moment is to just kind of stop and go, okay, well, let me give them two choices, but let's make sure these choices work for me. It's not, it's not a choice of that something that doesn't work. It's, do you want the red shirt or the green shirt? It's not that you can't get dressed. So I always tell parents that's like a quick thing when you're stuck, you're frustrated or something, like go back to just let me do a choice real quick. And then that gives you a second to reset and kind of think about how you want to approach things.
Definitely. Yeah, sometimes we just need that little break to kind of clear our thoughts and yeah, and like choices that make sense because we're going to move forward. We're going to keep going with whatever it is. Um, Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate your time. And again, I'm here if I think moving forward we'll try to find a time during the day. I think that will be easier for parents. But again, I thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Ms. Michelle,
Michelle. We
for your
appreciate
time.
your expertise.
And your knowledge. Yes.
Thank you
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Have a
Take
good
great
night.
care.
night.
You too.